Hello Canada! Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Guy. Well, after I went out on the ledge that I always do, especially yesterday's episode, a lot of my close contacts reached out to me and, of course, thanking me for everything that I do, exposing, just the truth, just the facts. Align me with a lot of footage that they're receiving from people they know within the Middle East. So I'm going to warn everybody, today's episode is going to be somewhat graphic. I'm not going to show the actual bodies. I have been going through these clips and not holding my lunch down today at all, nor coffee. But again, those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. This is an obvious thing forgotten by most civilized countries. I'm going to just kind of go over not only some of the stuff that's been happening in the last month, but I'm going to show Canadian air packages, well, ending lives, and the repercussions that now rest on our shoulders and crush the hearts and souls of anybody who is actually aware of the evils and incompetence of our government. Now, I apologize because obviously my audience doesn't believe in anything that our government is doing is justified or meaningful in any way to what it is to be not only Canadian, but to be human. And, man, I'm just sick. My mouth is watering here. It's been a hard morning. I'm just, as usual, going to lay the facts and deal with, if I have time, and I apologize, I know yesterday's episode was a little bit long, but actually, nobody complained about it. I actually got compliments that I raced through to try and get all of the information I could into that episode. I was caught between making a two-part, but again, because of the time, and I get posting late again, I want to always have these things out sometime around 3 or 4 before everybody's kind of getting off work, so when they get in, they can, throw the earplugs in or do the visual on the drive home, or, that whole supper time kind of main newscast. But today, I have got thousands upon thousands of files. I can't go through anymore. I'm sick to the stomach. Anyways, without further ado, let's just get started on today's episode. And again, it's not necessarily that this is horribly graphic. I'm not going to show some of the footage that really should be out there so that people could see their Canadian flags smashing through tents full of people, buildings, the fights, the chaos, and the, Palestinian leadership, the Hamas, and other Muslim Brotherhoods and all the rest of them that are in Gaza using brutal force and death to steal these packages. Okay, let's just get on with this.
Albanese included, saying a precondition for this state would be that Hamas would not be involved. Now, there's a problem there because you've got to get rid of Hamas first out of Gaza before you can say they're not going to be involved. But it's a glib line, really, in many ways, because you can say Hamas is not going to be involved, but this is an Islamist extremist group with links back to the Muslim Brotherhood. These are shape-shifting organisations. What you really need is to keep out that sort of Islamist extremist ideology from any governance in the Palestinian territories, and that's almost impossible to guarantee.
Very, very difficult to do. I noticed the other day the Arab leaders also coming out unanimously agreeing that Hamas needs to be expelled from Gaza, from the governance of Gaza. So every effort should be made to do that. And that should be the focus of international diplomacy and international comments. I mean, I agree that a ceasefire would be good, but why won't Hamas agree to a ceasefire? Why won't they release the hostages? Why won't they allow a restructuring of the governance in Gaza? And until Hamas start to have pressure applied to them, not just by the Israeli military, but by the international community, as compared to the other way around, the international community always putting pressure on Israel, you'll never solve this problem.
Well,
so
isn't that the real horror here? The counterproductive aspect is that the more pressure people put on Israel and talk about a Palestinian state, the more likely it is that Hamas is going to stick to its existing strategy and hang on to those hostages.
Exactly. And the more, what the international community is starting to do now, what Western powers like France, Canada, the UK, and so on are doing now, is empowering Hamas by taking the Hamas line that Israel is not providing sufficient food, Israel is too violent, and so on, taking the Hamas line and encouraging Hamas to double down on their strategy. Instead of doing the exact reverse. The pressure shouldn't be on the Israelis. The pressure should be on Hamas. Release the hostages, stop the fighting, allow food to be properly distributed, which they're not allowing, and move towards a more democratic system of governance in Gaza and including the West Bank. That's where the international community should be going, and that's where the pressure should be applied. And the Arabs working with the Western countries to do that. But no, they're doing the exact reverse. They're attacking Israel, criticizing Israel, using Hamas propaganda to attack Israel, and thereby just empowering Hamas all the more and encouraging Hamas all the more. And honestly, it is complete madness, which is driven by domestic political game playing.
Such a tragedy. I want to change topics, though.
And he is absolutely right. Now, on yesterday's clip, I actually added in there, and I think I forgot to mention it because I was racing through. But I posted on there, and as always, all of the links that I'm able to give, other than personal, because I have a lot of connections that I refuse to dox. I give every bit of information possible so that my viewing audience, and hopefully you like, share, and subscribe and get the word out so that more Canadians have the ability to see what's actually going on, and in the same part get a history lesson, as well as learn the proper tools needed in order to spot propaganda. We are surrounded by propaganda, and I know I repeat it over and over, but all for my new subscribers, propaganda is the strongest tool. It's the strongest arm of any fascist, socialist, or communistic government. And now we're seeing it infiltrating democracy, which is why we are at where we are today with this two-party system. Now, anyways, I added this clip on yesterday with the entire UN delegation and the Arab countries coming out discussing how wrong a few countries like us are and how we are standing on the wrong side. I can't believe as a Canadian, a country who raced to 2 world wars without our country having the courage to actually join in, Canadians were racing to go join the good fight. And here we are today. And the reason is propaganda. Now, National Post did a great article on this. Again, I'm attaching in the description below. And it's all about how the Arab countries have come together and they're saying we support a two-state solution, but not this way. Now, the evils of the UN, you got to remember the power that this organization has with their NGOs and third parties and all of the influence. They're in cahoots with the WEF and the rest of the global cabal. And the world, especially Canada, really needs to wake up to this.
This is a monument to the catastrophic failure of the United Nations to deliver aid into Gaza. Hundreds upon hundreds of pallets of aid just rotting in the sun instead of being delivered to the people who need it. The UN prefers blaming Israel, bitching about Israel. The reality, incompetence. And it's blaming Israel to cover up for that criminal negligence. The UN should do its job. Get the food to the people who need it, make sure that Hamas cannot steal it, and then pressure Hamas to accept a ceasefire that will release the hostages who are being starved inside the dungeons of Gaza, relinquish power, and let everyone put this horrible war that Hamas started behind us. This...
You see it all? Now, I've been posting these on previous episodes. The UN is complicit in the agony, destruction, and complete, just utter failure of what Palestine has become. I lost a couple of really good friends. Once you see past the curtain, there's no turning back.
Canada is the latest country to commit to recognizing a Palestinian state. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. There are now more than 24 nations that plan to back a two-state solution to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced support for a state led by the Palestinian Authority under certain conditions,
including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state.
Israel supporters say the PA shares some of the same goals as Hamas.
Effectively, what they want is a state as a means to destroying the state of Israel. This is part of the intentions belonging to Fatah, which is the leading faction of the PLO that run the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah. It's the same goals as Hamas in their covenant charter they wrote in 1987, calls for the destruction of the state of Israel and also Jews around the world.
President Trump says Canada's decision threatens ongoing trade negotiations with the United States. Posting on Truth Social, he wrote, Prime Minister Carney's support for a Palestinian state would make it, quote, very hard to reach a deal. Also in Washington, the Senate last night rejected 2 resolutions by Vermont Senator Bernie.
Take a look at what Bernie is showing. Previous episode, I exposed that picture on Bernie's left, on your right-hand side of the screen. Now, take a look at the child just off to the side. Why isn't that child starving? Any good reporter, anybody who studies propaganda, anybody with any keen eye to truth and reality picks that up. And a few great reporters did. Because Canada is flooded with Hamas propaganda. This is what socialists, communists, fascists use in order to sway public opinion into doing things that go against, well, pretty much all the moral dignity that one has in order to say, well, okay, no, you're right, let's do this. This has been disproven. This has been debunked. Here he is, Mr. Socialist himself, multi-millionaire off the backs of American taxpayers, screaming about how he's not a rich man. Right. This is fake. This child suffers from multiple diseases, polio and a few other different things. Previous episodes. Propaganda.
Bernie Sanders to block U.S. weapon sales to the state of Israel. A majority of Democrats, Gordon, voted in favor of those resolutions.
And what France, what Great Britain, and what Canada are trying to do here, and to hear a leader in Canada express, well, the Palestinian Authority is going to have to fundamentally change. Abbas has to have elections, which he hasn't had in forever. It's like they don't know the history. Here's the history. Under the Bush administration, our State Department believed that somehow or other the Arab Spring would spread into Gaza, and that the Gazans were longing for democracy and for liberty and for our hope in a future for their children and their grandchildren, and they wanted to live in peace. And so he strong-armed Israel into withdrawing from Gaza, and all the Jews were evacuated, and that's what happened. So now Gaza is no longer under the control of the IDF, and they hold elections. Who do the people of Gaza elect into power? Well, they elect Hamas. What does Hamas do? It takes out all of the political opposition. Every member of the Fatah party was killed. Some of them were thrown off the top of buildings to their death. That's what happened. And then once they solidified absolute control, they canceled all future elections and then used all of the international aid to build tunnels and rockets to attack Israel. You cannot look at this situation in some kind of vacuum or with rose-colored glasses that there's some future Palestinian state that wants to live at peace with Israel. It's just not the reality on the ground. You know, Abbas canceled elections too. He essentially created himself as president for life, and using his own security forces to enforce that. To say all of that is now irrelevant and isn't going to be the future of the Palestinian people is ignoring what they have done in the past. And what they have done in the past, going all the way back to 1948, is absolutely refuse a second state. They have never tried to create a Palestinian state. They aren't trying to build the basic infrastructure of what's needed to have a Palestinian state. Let's recognize what they really want. They want it all, and they want to drive Israel into the sea. They want a one-state solution and no Jews allowed. That's what they've been trying to do for decades. Can we please believe them?
Now, he's correct, but he's also incorrect. Truth of the matter being, since the beginning of this entire creating the state of Israel, you have had the hardcore Islamists who have been backed by a lot of the global elite through their own special interests, most of it based upon resources, who receive your tax dollars through NGOs and all of the rest of these government organizations, plus just investments, plus, and then all the rest of that crap, to destabilize areas. Governments have done this openly. The United States has been busted doing this. All nations do this. And over time, because of the ignorance and the lack of, well, moral fortitude, this has become, well, it's taken over Palestine. Not all Palestinians are that way. And people have to get this through their thick skulls. Not all Canadians voted for the fascist government we have today. Need I say more? Here we are, ruled by the same Liberal Party that has decimated our country. So, end this whole race bait bullcrap. It's the Muslim world. It's enough. Reality has to sink in sometime. My friends were born and raised there. They had acquaintances who they said were evil, but they recognized the fact that it was because they were susceptible to the brainwashing that was going on and was slowly getting out of control, to the point where you now have generations that are born and know nothing else. And this is why, like on the last episode, I showed what a lot of the people were saying that live all around countries around Palestine, especially those in Israel. It's going to take generations to change. The Arab world is speaking out because they know this, but it falls upon deaf ears. Why? Propaganda. We can make a difference, and it's called being human. Doing what we know is fundamentally right, and sometimes, just as in nature in the raw, it means doing harsh things. We need to remove Hamas and its entire system of hate from the face of the planet. It has to go. We have left Israel alone. How many times have Jordan tried to take over Israel? And now all of a sudden we're pumping them up saying, oh, look, Jordan's helping us. Jordan's helping with our airdrops. You don't think there's an ulterior motive to this? History, people. History. And understanding we need to promote the truth. Sorry, so sorry, just the truth, just the facts.
He wants the world to know what he witnessed in Gaza. Anthony Aguilar, a retired US Army Green Beret, worked as a security subcontractor for the US and Israel-backed firm, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. He's deeply shaken by what he saw. In this exclusive testimony, he reveals untold details about the GHF and its aid delivery plan. Anthony filmed this footage in Gaza.
As you can see, we're about 40 meters from the edge of the food line.
I believe that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is complicit in war crimes and that they are involved in an enterprise that has failed from the beginning.
Anthony Aguilar was hired by UG Solutions, a security subcontractor for the GHF.
There are UG contractors that are in Gaza that are utilizing non-lethal munitions and lethal munitions in unauthorized ways, and people are getting hurt. Palestinians are getting hurt.
Since the end of May, the GHF has opened 4 aid distribution sites, 3 south of the Israeli-controlled Marag corridor. There are 3 incidents that are seared into Anthony's mind. One involved a Palestinian woman who was seeking aid.
A stun grenade was thrown into the crowd directly next to a Palestinian woman who was with the aid box that she had, waiting to put her items into a bag so she could leave. And a UG Solutions contractor threw a stun grenade that detonated, and the metal top of it hit this woman in the head, knocked her unconscious. She was lifeless. She wasn't moving. She was then loaded onto a donkey cart by the other woman that was with her and moved off of the site.
France 24 could not independently verify the identity of this woman or confirm if she was killed. On that day, the Hamas-controlled health ministry reported 27 Palestinians were killed close to the Rafah distribution site. On the 29th of May, at site number 4, Anthony says UG Solutions contractors fired live bullets towards Palestinian civilians.
UG contractors opened fire, and there was catcalling and celebrating it.
I think you hit one.
The bullets were being fired by a UG Solutions contractor in the southern tower of site number 4, a fully automatic machine gun. He was spraying in bursts. And the second shooter was a UG Solutions contractor who was standing on a berm, firing with his individual rifle on fully automatic into the crowd as well. What they characterized as warning shots. But these shots were being fired at the feet, over the heads, and into the crowd of the departing Palestinians.
UG Solutions says no personnel have ever directed warning shots at civilians, aiming instead upwards in the air and towards the coastline. They say the contractor heard on video was encouraging IDF fire and has been terminated. There are some faces Anthony will never forget.
A young boy, hard to tell what his age was because of the starvation, maybe 7 years old. No shoes, tattered clothes, covered in dirt. No parents or adult supervision or anyone with him. He was alone. And he held out his hand, and I called him forward, and he held my hand and he kissed my hand. This young boy had nothing to do with what Hamas did on October 7th. As he walked out with this crowd, as the UG Solutions contractors were shooting warning shots and throwing stun grenades and tear gas, and the Israeli Defense Forces at the position at the intersection were firing into them.
That is the IDF unit, the 143rd Brigade. We had a meeting with them last night.
And I came up on the berm, and I could see Palestinians, civilians. You could see their white bags lying on the ground, items spilled. I saw that, and I felt that I don't want to be a part of this.
We contacted the IDF. They did not deny the claims, but rather said, following incidents in which harm to civilians who arrived at distribution facilities was reported, thorough examinations were conducted in the Southern Command and instructions were issued to forces in the field following lessons learned. The incidents are under review by the competent authorities in the IDF. UG Solutions and the GHF deny all allegations made by Anthony Aguilar, labelling him a disgruntled former contractor who seeks revenge.
Are you starting to see the depth of the problems? How do you get food to the people who need it when you can't tell who is good and bad? It just never ends. It just never ends.
The Nazi Party ruled Germany for less than 15 years, from the moment that Hitler became Chancellor to the end of the Second World War. And in that time, the Nazis, through their indoctrination, through their propaganda, through their programs for the young, managed to turn what was considered as Europe's intellectual society into a society which was walking the elderly into gas chambers, and saw this as a good thing. So wouldn't you say it's plausible that Hamas, who have existed since the 1980s, who have been in control of Gaza for almost 20 years, control every aspect of that society, that maybe, just maybe, it has been able to indoctrinate and brainwash people similarly? Because that essentially is the core of Hamas's ideology.
There are those who are speaking, who are trying to get the word out, who are trying so hard to put truth in front, in the spotlight. The kicker to most of it is that the reality insults and is so hard to bear for what we classify as enablers that they turn a blind eye to it. Right? La 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 la. I'm not responsible for this. There's nothing I can do. But then agree to these simplistic, moronic, they're not solutions. They're petty ways in which they can feel good and pat themselves on the back. We're airdropping now. We're airdropping. We're doing something. And it doesn't help when you've got Canadian propaganda. Canadian aid pallets, part of Gaza airdrop after Israel loosens restrictions. Blah, 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 blah.
Turning now to the situation in Gaza, where the death toll is climbing daily. Health officials report in just 24 hours, nearly 100 people were killed near aid trucks, desperate for food.
Did you hear that? Let me play that again.
In Gaza, where the death toll is climbing daily. Health officials report in just 24 hours, nearly 100 people were killed near aid trucks, desperate for food. Chris Reyes.
Really? Is that so? I wonder why. This is Mark Carney's post. A new airlift of Canadian aid landed in Gaza today with thanks to His Majesty King Abdullah II and our Jordanian partners. Canada is dedicating more than $340 million in aid to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and we will ensure it moves forward at a necessary scale. Look at these big, beautiful flags. Canada flags on all of these. Now, they only did this for a couple airdrops, a little insider told me. Because they know they don't want their flags down there when these things are smashing people's homes, when they are demolishing high rises, when they are being sunk to the bottom of the sea, when Hamas is using them as bait in order to persecute anybody who goes and grabs them. Propaganda, people. Here is the reality.
رائد الأغا يا farmer, this is my farm. This is my message to the world who want to help us. Please don't throw food and assistance by plane. You don't help me. You destroy my farm. Look what the amount of destruction that caused by airplane. This is not assistance. This is not assistance. This is destruction. You destroyed my farm. Everything. How can I defend myself from the people who come and run to me? They wanted to kill me. They come with knife and guns to take their portion of food. This is not assistance. You want to help me? This is not the way. Change the way. Try to find another way to help me.
Now, this guy has a deal with Hamas. He grows food. He gives Hamas a cut. And he feeds the people with it. He needs to sign a deal with the devil in order to do a good thing. And then, lo and behold, the so-called heroes in Canada come by, and they're airdropping. And now, not only does he have Hamas, who is choked at him for no reason towards him. He didn't put an X on his spot and say, drop the food here. But he also has to deal with the people who are starving. Chaos. And you can't blame the guy for having to make a deal with the devil. Because he's trying. He's trying his hardest for his own morality and humanity to do the best he can under the circumstances in which he is living, that Canada has helped create. But oh, there's more, people. There's more. 3 methods of an aid distribution to Palestinians in the Gaza Strip: airdrops, Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and UN shipments. The first to proceed with relative calm and get food into the hands of average Gazans. The last, the UN's way, is marred by chaos, looting, and confiscation by Hamas. The UN has again demonstrated its uselessness. Its loud criticism of Israel and other aid delivery methods are nothing more than a desperate attempt to remain relevant. This is the reality. Israel and the States they have got zero help in trying to give true food and protection to people because of the chaos in there. These people hide behind women and children. They use them to carry bada bing bada booms right to the fronts and self-destruct. How do you know who to trust? How do you actually succeed in bringing relief to these people? This is not the way. They're doing it out of spite. They're doing it to crush Israel. Now, I've got other footages that are coming in from Syria that I'm not going to show you today because I've got way more evidence just to kind of show you the reality of what is going on. So I'm going to pause and play so that I can read to you what he's saying. Baffled how they kill us. Our experience with air assistance. Too bad. This calamity. You kill us, do not help us, and do not affect me. You kill us. Do not help us. A state of affairs is providing food. Most fall into the sea. Its quantity is scarce, and it does not get fat, and it does not sing from humor. So they do not get fat, and they do not sing from be saved from hunger. I didn't even designed for our conditions can be designed to drop it, or endangered animals, and death, and fires in the forest, and natural calamities. But recycling, it is not suitable for the Gaza Strip. This is a propaganda service for the occupation and for the Arab countries. Here's where we won the siege. You want to come in a dignified way. Don't go down from our heads and kill us. Basically, air aid is the way they invented to kill us more. And the aid is invented. One fell. Okay, this is where I have to kind of end it, because this is where it gets too graphic. But you see the problem. Now, this is a guy who's actually speaking against Israel and against the Arab nations who are helping as well. This is the reality of being forced into airdrops. So, Al-Masah Sharif, they humiliated us. With the aid parachutes they dropped to the sea. We live in Tal al-Jahatar. They drop it to the sea. So we come here like dogs. I'm here just so I can get a meal for my younger siblings. My younger siblings who are crying, saying that they're hungry. I swear I didn't get anything. I swear to God, I didn't get a thing. Why don't they secure the aid delivery to the poor families? Those whose husbands, widow and widows. How is she going to run here for her children? Her young children who cannot even eat. We're hungry. They can't find food to eat. Reality. This is the reality. Chaos, scrambling, and injuries occur as aid packages land in Gaza. Humanitarian airdrops continue in an effort to ease the deepening hunger crisis in Gaza. Crowds of displaced families scramble for supplies in a frenzy, causing injuries as aid packages landed. This way of distributing aid is all wrong. It destroyed us. My sons ran after the aid. I don't know if they're injured or dead. It's so hard to find food now. I'm sick. Look at me. I'm shaking. I'm afraid they were crushed under the packages. This is a burial siege. I used to be overweight. Now my bones are visible. My children are the same. We've been surviving for months on lentils. Even if it's dirty and full of sand, we clean them and eat them anyway. Never ends.
What do you make of these reports of the airdrops and other countries getting involved in the airdrops? We saw them in operation last April, I think it was. We saw people drowning as crates entered the sea, the desperation to get aid. We saw people being crushed by falling crates as well. And the numbers of tons of aid that could be distributed by air is tiny in comparison to what could be taken in by land. What do you make of this announcement? Is it helpful, or is it more of a distraction?
It's absolutely a distraction from the atrocities happening on the ground. And as you rightly said, they can be very dangerous, and they're absolutely unnecessary, because we can deliver aid through a much more efficient, cheaper, safer way. And that's allowing trucks, say, en masse, to drive into Gaza and be delivered by the UN, including UNRWA.
Just the truth. Sorry. So sorry. Oh, Canadian Air package. Right. Okay. We're saving people. Look, we're helping. Are you really? There was a family in that tent. Was. This is our aid. Are we helping? Now this is where I need to stop the footage. Because as you see, Hamas is en route. Left-hand side of the screen, coming in with the horses and that little wagon. And behind them are some people with some weapons. They take the aid anyways. Just like they've been doing since day one. And here's the aid they take. That's not the IDF people. That's Hamas. Starving their own people. Here they are, loading it up on the trucks. Taking it away. Now, pay special close attention to this. And take a look at what you actually see on the truck. The evidence is all there. But propaganda is not showing it to you. They are the enemy. I'm going to go to full so you can actually see it with me. These guys are working in cahoots with Hamas, as I showed on the previous episode. Notice the vest. Is that not UN humanitarian aid standing next to Hamas, shooting and warning people to stay away from the food? Yes, yes it is. And when you can't stop this because you're standing alone, and the world who has been involved in allowing this to happen is trying every which way possible to just create more fear, hate, and division for their own political purposes and wealth, you don't actually see how bad it really is. Our media played a little wee bit from Ron Braslovsky. And they're saying how, look, even the hostages are saying, end the war. What they're not aware of is this is typical, well, Stockholm syndrome. They get promises that they'll be let free if they say the things that the hostage holders want. And then the reality is hidden from the people. I'm going to show you the reality of what happened to Rom. Again, I'm cutting out most of the graphic. The links are in the description below. Sorry, I'm having a hard time holding it together here. Braslovsky, an Israeli hostage, was abducted from the Nova Music Festival. I'm going to have to mute this because there is music. Gaza terror group said that communication was lost. After IDF's fresh op in Deir el-Balah, his fate remains unsecure. Hamas has lavished his feast in the tunnel right next to him. Look at the food. Look at the food. Look at how fat these guys are. Gaza terrorists, terror lords. Oh, I'm going to get censored anyways. What the hell, right? We're seen enjoying their lavish meals. Look at all the food. Oranges, grapes. Hamas terror lords seen enjoying luxury dinner with fresh produce while Gazans suffering from hunger, food, and scarcity. They're all in the tunnels. They're safe. In the video, several terror lords are in a tunnel are seen holding up to the camera and celebrating. They are seen flaunting fresh mangoes, grapes, and bananas. On cam, terror lords feasting on full plates of food. In the meantime, now, this is what the media didn't show you. They showed you the little clip of him pleading, saying, end the Gaza, what have we done? Oh my, we're on the wrong side. This was a soldier. They broke him. Even his family came out and said, they broke him. That's not my son speaking. The media, crickets. They were quick to use his words and suffering, but they were even faster in stopping the real information from coming out. I'm not playing any more of this. And in the meantime, what is our media doing? Oh, our media.
Is that it hasn't allowed arms shipments to Israel since 2024 don't hold up. The data was uncovered by a group of researchers from 4 NGOs. CBC's Evan Dyer joins us live from Ottawa now with more on this. Evan, thank you for joining us here. What's in this report? What more does it have to say?
Well, this report, Hillary, drew on a couple of sources of data from outside of Canada to sort of cross-reference what they say against what the government of Canada says, which is that as of January 8th of last year, it cancelled all permits for export of arms to Israel that could constitute offensive weapons. We've heard slightly shifting definitions of what they didn't want to go, but basically they said lethal equipment at one point, or equipment that could be used in Gaza, but very much telling the Canadian public that Canada has withdrawn permission for Israel to export weapons, arms and ammunition from Canada to Israel.
This is 2 days ago, people. This is all part of the brainwashing in Canada. This is all propaganda. Making it seem as though what we're doing is right. By stopping the good from being able to do what is against our morals, but know is the right. To sacrifice certain moralities and humanities within yourself for the greater good of peace and a future for other generations to live in peace and harmony, like what we did in World Wars I and II. They are slowly brainwashing every day, pounding this out, repeating them over and over and over. That somehow this has now become bad. Hamas is good, Israel is bad. But let's hammer on, Sean Foyt, and let's hammer on. The insanity has reached an all-time high. Again, why I created this channel. And in the meantime, here's our dollar. But don't worry. It's all good. Elbows up. Because guess who's making record profits on this? Oh, right. The new glorious leader, Mark Carney. And in the meantime, 32% more water advisories on First Nations reserves. The number of long-term boil water advisories on First Nations is up 32% from last year, says Indigenous Services Minister Mandy Gull, Massey's department. Dozens of First Nations still have tap water unfit to drink, more than 4 years after the cabinet promised to eliminate it. Self-destruction, people. Again, this relates to yesterday's episode. Where is Canada going? Are we going to allow ourselves to go down this path? It sure seems so. Especially when you've got people who hide the truth. Now, you've got this. This Liberal MP sponsors petition to target political lies. And of course the media is kind of echoing this. But leave it to the Western Standard to actually tell the truth. Here's the whole story. A Liberal MP has sponsored a petition in the House of Commons that calls for legislation to punish elected officials who knowingly mislead the public, sparking debate about truth in politics and free expression. Blacklock's reporter says Kareem Birdsey, MP for Tiakono and Parkdale, Ontario, and Parliamentary Secretary for Industry, brought forward petition E6679 on behalf of constituents, though he said he does not personally endorse its content. Oh, there's the truth. Putting my own signature to the petition itself would be the indicator of my personal support of the contents of the petition, said Bardazi. I did not do so. The petition claims that political misinformation is damaging democracy and public trust. It does not cite specific examples, but states members of parliament have been accused of making important public statements that are false and without evidence. It calls for the Commons to pass a law addressing perceived and actual misinformation from MPs using proposals outlined in a white paper by the UK-based Institute for Constitutional and Democratic Research. The Institute's report, A Model for Political Honesty, suggests a legal framework where courts could issue correction notices for misleading statements. Politicians who fail to comply could face disqualification orders that prevent them from holding office for a set time. The report proposes that courts determine whether a false or misleading statement has to be made and recommends that consequences follow if a correction is not issued within 7 days. Have you heard about the petition? Again, this was enough people came forward and harassed this MP where he had to do something before it exploded in their face. So he does in order to hide it. Thank you, Western Standard. Make sure you follow them. This is a great news organization. Sorry, so sorry. Just the truth, just the facts. And I'm going to end off with a little clip of Brian, Lily Unleashed. Some footage has now come out with the interview of Travis Durange. Listen very carefully. This is just propaganda.
And we've now obtained some of the video from those meetings. Here is Andrea Lau. She is one of the top CBC journalists. She was overseeing Dan Raj and his show. She's in charge of digital platforms and streaming. And she's questioning him about public reaction to his ex-post saying the CEO turned down our interview request.
Are you aware of the public reaction your post has elicited to you? Mm-hmm. And what is that?
There's a conversation.
What's your understanding of the concern from the public?
I think that there's a conversation going on right now about the money and what's happening with the money and Catherine Tate and why she's not doing an interview, et cetera, et cetera. So there is public pressure building on Catherine Tate to perhaps do an interview with her own broadcaster or a broadcaster to give some transparency around the money.
Now, that's bad enough because Lau is someone who works on the journalism side. She doesn't work in the corporate side where she's worried about the reputation of the state broadcaster. She is a journalist. This whole story about CBC and its budgets and job cuts and bonuses, this was very much up for discussion across the media.
Wow. Real media.
Not just by CBC, but by other media outlets at all. It was a legitimate story, and Dan Raj was asking legitimate questions, or wanted to. But after posting that he was turned down for an interview, they didn't like the public reaction. And
now, how many mainstream legacy outlets were even bringing up the fact of how much money CBC got? How many of them are talking about what's going on right now with Travis Durange? Oh, because they're all on the payroll. They are all some form of state propaganda.
So you've got a journalist, someone who is in charge of journalists, who oversees their work and is supposed to be separate from the corporate side, according to CBC's standards and practices. Well, you've got this woman basically prosecuting Dan Raj over how other people reacted online. Here's more.
Are you aware of other responses that include shots fired from within? Dan Raj tells on his CBC boss to refuse to interview by the CBC.
Am I being held responsible now for other people's tweets?
No, I'm just asking if you're aware of the responses.
I've read the responses. It has, I think, 260,000 views so far.
Listen very carefully.
Responses like, in one post, you just made the strongest argument for defunding CBC I've ever read. You're aware of those?
Is that problematic?
I'm just asking if you're aware of those responses.
well aware of the response to this.
And are you aware of a National Post article by Tristan Hopper published this week that features your post? It was a screen grab of your ex post.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am.
Hotline says, here's Travis Danrush complaining on social media about being snubbed for an interview. Effectively, he was calling out his boss for not being transparent enough about what she plans to do with the extra $42 million. Do you understand the impact of your post on both the CBC?
This is really problematic and shows the lengths that CBC is going to go to defend themselves, to also, put forward an image that isn't quite right with what they claim publicly. They claim that this sort of thing would never happen, that they have processes in place to stop it. They are beyond reproach, except they're not. And this is an issue. On top of that, Catherine Tate said before a parliamentary committee that she was never briefed on Dan Raj or his disappearance or his disciplinary actions. And yet, documents that we've obtained through access to information show she was briefed just before the parliamentary committee. She was told all about it. Most of what she was told was redacted, but it's clear Dan Raj was part of the conversation.
You getting all this? The Liberal Party is inexplicably linked to the CBC people. We already know this because how many of the actual people who ran as and won as MPs were part of not only that state broadcaster, but other propaganda outlets.
CBC is rotten to the core. I think that I've been showing that for a long time, but this Dan Raj incident really spells that out for people. This is a problem. And the Carney government, rather than looking for reform at CBC, they've just offered to give them $150 million more each year just to pad their bottom line. At a time when other media outlets are struggling, CBC is getting more money from the government, and they're doing their best to reward the government with positive liberal coverage. Let me know.
And there you have it. And that's where we are and why we're in the state we are today. It's very hard to have an enlightened future when you're shown nothing but darkness. We need to make sure to like, share, and subscribe to not only my show, but to other independent media outlets out there who are putting truth to power. So please, if you can, support independent media. You can do so with my channel by purchasing some of the clothing or merch that I have from my store, or you can do it by donating. And I know it's Canada. It's tough. 25% of us are living in poverty, 13% in extreme poverty. Until we actually get the truth, so sorry, just the truth out there, it's only going to get worse, people. I'm sorry for showing some of that nasty stuff, but I just wanted to make sure that Canadians had right there in front of them the ability to see that you're not helping. And it really breaks my heart. I tell you, my morning has been just... I'm literally distraught. I'm sick to the stomach. Like I said, I've had a pail close to me, and a few times just had to get up and get away. Seeing what my country is forcing me and my tax dollars to do in the name of their own fascist ideology, to hide the truth. Ankles up, everybody. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are subscribed, punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time, you guys, I'm Alias the Guy. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.